Welcome to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Motors, Ireland's favourite car buying website, with the widest selection of cars from certified trusted dealerships. Most Irish drivers find their next car on DoneDeal. What are you smirking at?
I'm just delighted to be able to actually see you for once. We've manipulated the technology that we can now actually see each other while we're talking to each other. So hopefully we don't interrupt each other as much as we did.
That doesn't mean there's a video version coming. People have said, "Oh, would you not do video? Is it really necessary?"
I don't know. I mean, if they really want to see us, we might look at it at some stage. But for now, no, we will we'll stick to audio, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Beautiful weather we're having. Beautiful cars to look at. Cars look better in the sunshine, it has to be said.
They do. I mean, the clock's changing and the weather being a bit better, it does make everything seem a little bit rosier. So, yeah, it's definitely convertible weather. And this week I've been enjoying convertible weather. Yeah.
So what are you driving?
MG Cyberster. And you know what? I was calling it the wrong thing until I watched your video the other night. I had it in my head that the car was called a Cyberster.
But Cyberster.
Yeah, I don't know why that was glued to my head, but obviously it's the Cyberster. And unlike the dual motor one that you had in your video, I have the single motor. And I'm pleasantly surprised. Pleasantly surprised in lots of things. Like there's obviously recency bias of watching your video, but I am totally in agreement on a whole lot of things that you said in your video. Having driven the car, it's just an odd. I like it, but it's odd in lots of ways. For anyone who doesn't know, the Cyberster is MG's new roadster, open top roadster. It has these amazing looking scissor doors, which look very clever, but take quite a while to get out of if you're in a hurry.
Yes.
I was just down at my local doctor's for a checkup, and the local doctor in Ballycotton is a lovely man, and you go up and you check in at the window, and then he comes out to you when your appointment is ready. So I was parked outside, and he come out, and I am pressing the door, waiting for this scissor door to open up. And talk about him like looking at me as if, right, there's notions now. Notions. So the Cyberster is this 77 kilowatt hour EV roadster from MG. You've driven the dual motor version, which is 507 horsepower and has power front and rear. I am in another version that MG Ireland have put on, which is the single motor, which is 380 or something like that. Which is loads. Which is loads, and powers to the rear wheels rather than all-wheel drive. Different alloys, smaller size alloys, but pretty nonetheless. And has pretty much most of everything else. It's a few quid cheaper as well. So
it's $5,000.
Yeah, it is $5,000. So it's under 70 grand. I think it's just a fraction, 100 quid under 70 grand. What was your for anyone who hasn't watched the video, do go and watch Nobby on Cars for the full review of the dual motor version. I'll have something on Car Talk at the weekend on the single motor. What was your take on that car for anyone who hasn't seen the video?
One of the most striking cars that has gone on sale in recent years. MG have put 100th anniversary badges on the side of it, which has triggered some people. But actually, I saw that car probably a year before it actually went into production, and the guy who designed it sounds like he should be in Batman. His name is Chris Gotham.
Oh, what a name!
But that car is funny because people are giving out about the heritage. That car from start to finish has got British DNA all over it. The car was, I don't want to say designed in London, but that's where I went to MG's HQ in London, and that's where Chris was. And you saw the design team who'd worked on the car just sitting there like maybe like an architect's office. It was kind of weird just walking through, and we were kind of told, don't picture anything, don't look too long at anything. So they hadn't even kind of made the place secret for us or anything like that. I just found it is an amazing cruiser car.
Yeah.
It looks absolutely gorgeous. Nothing else like it out there. Price for what it is. If that had an Audi badge on it, double the price of it. fact. Charging speed was a little bit low, but again, like as someone who has an EV at home, charging speed is largely irrelevant because you're charging overnight. But then the other side of it is, and I've owned an MX-5, so that is still the ultimate roadster for lots of people. And compared to that, the ride height is vastly different. So as long as you go into the Cyberster understanding what it is, and it's not a roadster, it's not a Boxster, it's not an MX-5, then I think you'll get on with it very well. I just had to point out the fact that, compared to an MX-5 where you're barely seeing over the top of the steering wheel, you are literally, your eye line is at the top of the windscreen in the Cyberster.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the sense of occasion is extraordinary. So, I mean, that the whole theatre of arriving somewhere, the scissor doors coming up. I mean, I'm collecting my young fellow from school at 1:30 today. He hasn't seen it, and I know he's going to lose his mind when he sees it. And his schoolyard kudos is going to be, right up there. But a couple of things struck me really from the drop. Firstly, the interior. There's an awful lot going on. It's very very busy. You're sitting quite. It's obviously quite compact, and the screens are. There's 3 screens, and trying to navigate the menus are, the first while, when you collect a car and you're a little bit, right, what's where? This is the longest it's taken me in any car recently to figure out what the hell is going on. So there is that little bit of getting used to. It's incredibly fast. It's very well behaved on a motorway, as you said. I found when road surfaces get a bit poorer, that you're not feeling much brake pedal, you're not feeling a whole lot from the steering, even if you put the steering feel on full. And while it's blisteringly fast, it's something that I'm not sure I'd want to necessarily push on because you're not being told a lot. You know, and that's my experience of it so far. I mean, funny looking at prices of other things, because we talked about MX-5. For the dual motor, you could have 2 Mazda MX-5s in terms of price. The Porsche Boxster's 106, 107 grand to scrape into one now. About 37 grand more expensive than a Cyberster. The Z4 isn't as expensive as I thought it would be.
Much is that?
It's under 70 grand starting off for the Z4. Now,
and that does give you more of a...
Yeah, it's more visceral.
Of what you're looking for in that kind of car. Now, and I actually haven't driven the single motor Cyberster. I've driven it here. I've driven it in Goodwood on the track, not the track at Goodwood, track near Goodwood. And like all those things you say, you were less confident pushing it on because things just started getting quite choppy the faster you went. Like I brought that car up through Sally Gap for people that know those roads. They're brilliant driving roads. Sometimes it's loose gravel, which is not ideal, but they're good roads, not particularly wide roads, and that is a wide car. And yeah, I think I'd only just bought my 911 a couple of weeks before I drove that car, and that is a 20-year-old car, and maybe that's being a little bit harsh on the Cyberster. I just thought I'm in something that's 20 years old and it drives like this compared to this that is brand new. You can't, like, there's nearly an extra ton in weight in it for starters.
But in fairness, it's a one of one. There is no other EV roadster 2-seater with scissor doors.
No,
it doesn't exist. So for somebody that they're going to love this.
Like for someone who doesn't need a lot of space, and the boot's actually all right in it for that kind of car. The boot is
it's about 100 litres more than a Boxster or an MX-5.
But it's just a wider opening for that size of car. I think the world is still a better place to have it in it. I mean, and it shows you what can be done with electric cars. And if that was a V8 or a V6, even less people. I think MG have actually sold quite a few of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, kit-wise, it's got everything, 8-speaker, Bose audio, the roof you can open as you drive. I tried it the other night. You can open it at speeds of up to 45 kilometers per hour, which is quite cool, especially for Ireland. And yeah, I think I was doing about 40 kilometers per hour when I put the roof down. It has an arsenal of equipment, which when you go into the BMW website and start ticking boxes on the Z4, you're suddenly starting with a 9. So look, like you said, I think you summed it up perfectly. I love that it exists. It's nice that it is around. It's nice to see cars like this. But for me, I'd still think I'd have an MX-5 and a few quid change, because for the experience that you're buying this for, which is roof down, bit of crack, a drive potentially without even any music on, it's still from probably MX-5 for me.
You can get easily the same experience. It doesn't look as flash, I'll give you that, but you can get the same. Sorry, I would say a better driving experience driving an MX-5. Even my MX-5 was an NB, so it was like 20, 21 years old or something. But look, an older car comes with other problems like maintenance and stuff like that. So yeah, look, it's a striking looking car. I would like to try. I didn't want to book into this one you've been driving because some people haven't driven that car at all. So I didn't want to go block booking another week in the Cyberster, but maybe for later on in the summer or something when it's more available. But yeah, I think a very affordable. I know 70 grand's a lot of money still, or 75 for the, but still for what it is, it's very affordable. I'm sure a lot of people won't be driving in the mountains or on those kind of roads every day of the week, and you can still have lots of fun and look great. But as you say, an MX-5 will give you a...
What I would say is the single motor one does appear to be quite efficient. And I did Dublin to where I live in East Cork, and I still had like 20% battery left. And that was, 120 kilometers per hour on the motorway and a little bit of fun on a squirrely road coming back. So, it did prove quite efficient. So I think if you were concerned about range, single motor might make sense. But then again, if you're buying it, I know it's a lot of money, but $5,000 over the course of 3 years in the PCP is probably going to be very little. So you probably should, you might just end up going for the dual motor version because it's probably secondhand going to be the one people want.
Possibly. Also, by the way, not to be pedantic, but you said 3 screens. I think it has 4. So am I right in thinking there's one to your left, the middle, and the right on the driver, but then you have the climate.
If you consider they're broken up into 3, then there's the one with the gear, the transmission, well, not the transmission tunnel, but then with the gear lever.
Yeah. I mean, look, again, just to summarize, one of the most beautiful cars, modern cars that you can lay your eyes on.
Yeah, really impressive. And as I said, we love it exists.
Yes, we do. It's been a big week for bosses of car brands. We don't really know much about either story, but the boss of Cupra has departed, and the boss of Volvo, who's a Scotsman, has departed.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and we have an interview with the boss of Cupra Ireland next week, but unfortunately we recorded it a couple of weeks ago, so we didn't get the chance to ask him about this. But
this was not news then.
It was not news then. Yeah, I've seen reports, and I don't know, I can't remember the guy's name, but it seems like Volvo's old boss is going back to replace the guy who's left. And then in terms of Cupra, I don't know, that's an odd one. I would have thought that he was flying. The sales seemed to be well. Maybe they weren't quite good enough, but yeah, it's an unusual one.
So that's Jim Rohn, who is his legacy would probably be making Volvo a software company that builds cars. That was one of the headlines this week. And he's been talking about the challenges that we'll face into car brands over the future. I only did that in the last couple of days. I don't want to make any sweeping statements about his age, but I would say Jim Rohn is like he's well into his 60s. Maybe he just it's time to retire.
Yeah, I'm seeing here report that ex-boss Hakan Samuelsson is due to return as CEO.
Sometimes when they bring back people like that, it's like an interim boss.
Yeah, potentially. But if you look at Satan Cooper, I mean, there was a lot of the work done there by Luca De Meo as well in the background before. You could say that arguably he was the person who brought those brands to where they are before he departed. So who will replace Wayne Griffiths? I don't know who will be that long term, but watch this space, I guess.
Wayne was there for 5 years at the top of Cupra anyway.
Audi before that, I remember him in the Audi brand.
He always wore jackets with 4 stripes on the arm, and I asked a few people, what's the story with the stripes? Like every event he would have this on, and apparently it was clothing that one of his friends, it was a clothes designer, so he would support his friend
Fair enough.
through that way.
Fair enough.
I always thought was he trying to show that he's the captain with his 4 stripes. So I
maybe.
wasn't sure where the subliminal message was going there.
What have you been driving this week?
Driving this week, I spoke to you about the XC90. In fact, we recorded some of last week's episode on that. Got on well with that car. I do find the range is a little bit lacking in it. You will be charging it every other day because I wasn't doing big mileage school runs and those kind of things, and still needed to top it up at night time. It's claimed 70 kilometers. It's probably 50, but I even gave you a lift in it during the week, Paddy. A very comfortable, solid car, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend one to anybody if you have the funds or the means. This week, the Volkswagen ID Buzz long wheelbase. I've been driving that for the last couple of days.
I was looking at their product guide recently, and I think I said it to you. The 5-seater's gone now, right?
You can still, the Volkswagen Ireland can still get you one.
Yeah, that's a bit like, do you really want one? Are you gonna be a pain in the ass and ask us to get you one? Because the price has gone up significantly. Like the 5-seater one, I think you could scrape in with starting with 50, a 4 somewhere. Was it?
Was it? Wow.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a smidge under 50. I think it started with a 4, but now it's quite a bit more.
It's mid-60s now, and there are some GTX versions with like 1,000 kilometers on them on DoneDeal for about 70. Now the GTX, I have driven it, and it's very, very fast in a straight line. I think it's nearly too fast. Why would you want to carry that many people that quickly? I think it will give you more towing capacity in the 4-wheel drive version. That might be a reason.
Right, like the GTX looks really good.
It does.
But as you said, you want to bring sick bags with you if you're bringing a ton of passengers. And
there's enough pockets in the seats to store a sick bag, in fairness.
Yeah. But it looks like, I really like the Buzz. 7 seats, and it's presumably this is slightly longer, so that gives you 7 seats and a bit of boot space, right?
Still boot space. Yes, it's got a larger battery basically in the long wheelbase because there's more room to fit more in, so it'll do just shy of 300 miles or just shy of 500 kilometers on a very good day. But it's, if you do put 7 people into it and some luggage, that obviously won't be as well. It's still as aerodynamic as a brick. Unfortunately, when I did collect it, it was really good. It was doing 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and I noticed someone had turned off the AC on the climate menu, so I flicked that on just to see. Now I don't know if it's attributed to it. I mean, it's effectively not quite doubled, and particularly when it's cold in the mornings, it's doing like 40 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
Yeah,
it takes.
That's not great.
The newest versions, so this is a larger battery. You do have battery preconditioning now. I know someone who definitely wouldn't appreciate me giving their name out, who's been running one for the last couple of years, that they bought a very early Buzz, and also were one of those people that it was 10 grand cheaper overnight, but they paid the higher price. But they do still love it, and it does also Dublin to Cork regularly. So, I mean, I'd imagine it's a car people who have them, one, they're probably married to them for a little while, but they do genuinely enjoy driving them. Like, they're good to drive. For people who don't know, like, it's an ID4 underneath, which is probably a bit mind-blowing to think that it's on the same platform, but that means it drives more car-like than a van, which essentially it is. Like, I was going through a toll yesterday on the way to Enfield, and it clocked through at like €5 something on the toll.
Oh, because the weight?
I don't know. Well, sometimes, like, I know the Eastlink, when it miscalculates your reg, that night will credit you back the difference. Right, okay. I need to check because it was down as a commercial vehicle, and I just thought, like, this is hilarious. It's a zero emissions vehicle, and right now, anyway, I'm getting charged €5 plus to drive it on the road. It's like,
yeah, I don't know why I think the Port Tunnel one has some sort of a weight measurement on it, but
future proofing maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but that is. Look, it's. I've been looking at the used car values on those, and there's no cheap ones yet. And you can get cheap ID3s, ID4s, but there's no cheap Buzz models. No, and it would be quite a buy in a couple of years if you can find one. But they're really holding their value pretty well.
I noticed that as well. Not sure why that is. Is it because there's not an abundance of them?
Well, they didn't sell very many 5-seaters. That was sluggish at the start, and that's gone. So now you can only get an expensive one. So the smaller ones are probably holding their value really, really, really well.
Yeah, and as a 7-seater, okay, you can get a 5008, also fully electric, for low 50s, or you can get an EV9 that is quite a bit more, which will drive probably a little bit better. But and I've driven the left-hand drive ID Buzz, and the turning circle on it is brilliant. It's not actually as small on the right-hand drive version, but it kind of, so it's sitting between 5008 or EV9, somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's a car that will put smiles on faces every time you drive. Like, people look at it all the time. The other thing that I remember, like, doing the launch of that car in Copenhagen, and they had like the green and white colors and the green and white dashboard, and it all looked very, very funky. The one this week, it's all black on the outside with the largest wheels, and it looks cool. But on the inside, everything's black, and the seats, it's not that they're not comfortable, but the pattern, the design of the seat, I swear to God, you could put it in a Dacia Stepway and no one would know the difference. And I just thought, really, VW, is this the best effort for the seat design on such a cool looking vehicle? Yeah, it's just that trim, obviously, but
that is a shame. Yeah, I mean, I think I would like it in black, with the black wheels, but yeah, I think I'd probably go for something like a burnt orange, brown interior, or something like that.
And also another thing about the 7-seater, you now get climate control in the rear, and you can open the chip van style windows on the side.
Nice. And can you remove the third row seats or fold them at least pretty flat?
You can fold them flat, and I need to double check. Can you lift them out? I think you can.
Like, the appeal for me would be something like a 5-seater, one of those with the boot space. You know, if you were able to, that would be a properly cool utility vehicle, you know, put a bike in the back or whatever else.
Yeah. And there's a cool kind of folding part of the boot, so you can tilt it up or you can have it flat. So there's like 2 layers of a boot, even with the third row up. So yeah, it's very practical. And yeah, like, it does decent charging speed. Yeah, it's not as aerodynamic, but lots of cars that size aren't aerodynamic.
Well, it is. You're pushing quite a brick through the air there. All right.
Yeah.
And the other cars that you're in this week?
I will have a Cooper Tavascan.
All right.
Picked it up probably the end of the week, because after this podcast I have to go and collect the new Model Y.
Ah, great.
So I'm very controversial about this.
Controversial Model Y.
Yeah, controversial Model Y. And Stella Lee, who's the VP of BYD, was interviewed 2 weeks ago by the Sunday Times in the UK, and she, not talking about Tesla in particular, but just BYD, tariffs, Trump, the whole lot. She said, you know, why should the customer, who's the one paying, ever have to get involved in politics when buying a car? It shouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's very benevolent of her. I'm not sure Mr. Musk would be the same, but yeah, look, you know, we joke about that. The car itself is, I believe, really good. You know, I haven't driven the new Y yet, but the reports I'm reading are that it's excellent, and I don't know if that will stop some people buying it, especially in Ireland, where it's done quite well. We will see.
Ireland and the UK are kind of bucking the trend when it comes to sales of Tesla since the start of the year, especially Germany. So, I mean, you can understand why, if he was perceived to be doing something that German people would be deeply offended by, you could understand why that's happened. I think one of the reasons here as well is our cars and the UK also are, you know, they're dearer than in Germany. So there's more of an incentive for an Irish person to go, okay, well, I might think Musk is a muppet, but I can buy the new Model Y for 44 grand. The car has not gone up versus the last model. That's unheard of. Now, was that always going to happen, or was that to try and just kind of deal with the PR crisis right now? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how you get on with that. Like, the thing is, about you get into a Tesla, everything works really well. The charging is excellent. The technology just works. Sure enough, maybe they've gone about too far in removing buttons, but look, range wise, performance wise, they are incredibly good. Sometimes the build quality doesn't feel quite up to scratch, but look, I think it could be a temporary measure. People might forget. People do forget, and maybe in a year's time, people will be back buying Teslas to the degree they were.
And they've taken the badge off the front of it.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen them with Honda badges on them, yeah. which is pretty impressive.
So that's 3 cars this week, which is always a challenge. But look, when an email comes along saying, look, you can have the Model Y for 2 days initially. We're trying to move it around to everybody. Would you like to take it? So I was like, yeah, okay, look, some things you've got to do.
True. And Dacia Spring for me next week and Hyundai Inster. So I think we might need to put our heads together on that one.
Yes, there's another potential twin test. Also, the Instaroid, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Some people were flown to Korea to have a look at this car during the week.
Wow.
So it's 2 meters wider than a normal Inster. Again, the likes of the Renault 5 WRC car that we saw. I think that's kind of what I don't know if
I'm looking at
what are the what's the benefits of brands of doing these cars? Is it just to keep the name out there?
Yeah, look, PR exercises and it also gauges certain design themes as well. So it might be that, okay, well, have people really gone nuts about this wheel design or the fact that it's a bit wider or whatever. But it would also possibly indicate that there is a potential for an Insta N at some stage, and gives you the full cartoon flavor of what this car would look like. And then when it comes to reality, you would have to think that other brands are looking at the huge reaction to the Renault 5. And across the board, they must be looking and going, right, okay, Renault have produced this cartoon version of an old Renault 5 that's an electric. We would like a little bit of that, and I think we will start seeing a lot more brands coming out with kind of Hot Wheels versions of cars, because they're so appealing. So yeah, I would say maybe it points towards an Insta N at some stage. But yeah, it's look, we're talking about it now. We're not the only ones.
Yeah, I was at the Irish launch of the BYD C-Line 7 yesterday, and someone had the 5 there in navy, which I wasn't sure on paper. I was like, navy, it's green and yellow, surely, or maybe white. But actually in the navy, all it's missing are some gold wheels, and it would look like a Clio Williams, kind of.
Oh, good point. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, I'm looking forward to driving that car in a couple of weeks. And you are in it soon as well, I think, aren't you?
I am, and I was looking through the details. I originally was told that Renault wouldn't have any yellow cars on the press fleet. I think there are some yellow cars in Dundrum, but I think maybe common sense has prevailed there, because I was looking through the finer details of the next few weeks, and the car I'm in, and I think I checked on Cartel as well, is yellow, which is good.
Yeah, I was listening to Dave Humphrey's podcast 50 to 70, and he was in the car, and he was in a white version, but like if you listen to he waxed lyrical about that car. He just said, like, they've really nailed it. Everywhere he went, people were smiling at him. Everywhere he went, people were asking questions. So it's one of those cars that I think, look, I think I saw the concept years ago, so did you. I think we all knew that this was going to be popular, but I think this is going to be really plentiful sight on Irish roads in the next 12 to 24 months.
And if Dave liked it, well, that is high praise indeed.
It is indeed, yeah, exactly.
Because Dave can be a hard man to please. Right, coming up on Drivers Republic podcast, and we don't forget our email address, driversrepublicpodcast@gmail.com. We will be talking to another managing director of a very successful Irish story in Ronan Flood, who has been managing director of Kia Ireland for, I'm going to say, maybe 4 years now at this stage. He's still friends with his predecessor as well, which is always a good sign in this business. Although Ireland and cars, it is a small business. And later on in this episode, you could have said the sales of EVs being up was just a fluke. It now seems to be a trend.
Yeah, and a really interesting conversation. Ronan is obviously a guy who has been at the coalface of the Irish industry for a long time, but he speaks with such passion, and he also speaks with a very grounded nature, and I think that comes across in the conversation we have.
Straight talker and a big Dubs fan. He is next on Drivers Republic podcast. Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Motors, Ireland's favourite website for car buying. With more certified trusted dealers than anywhere else, you're sure to find the right car for you on DoneDeal.ie. Paddy, we are on the road again.
Yes, we're on the road, and we are here in Dublin, and we're joined by Ronan Flood, who's Managing Director of Kia Ireland. Hi, Ronan.
Hello, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's good to see the two of you.
Is it really though, Ron?
Oh, well, there you go. I have to say that all the time. That's part of my job.
Now, I don't know about. I would probably sound maybe more comfortable talking to you than some of our other guests because we've been away so much on our travels. The last time was the EV3, which is now here and present in Ireland. Let's chat about that first of all, and then we'll talk about your career. Is it a bit like maybe not so much like the EV9? I think even maybe you were surprised by the sales numbers at EV9, but it's a car that's going to do well.
Well, EV3 and EV9, I'm a little bit surprised, but not really. Product is brilliant, and when you have the right product, you do the right things. We get the right. I would always say the 4Ps: product, price, people, and place. It's very rare that you get all four of those items aligned, and we don't. I'm not saying we have all four aligned, but we're getting close to it now. You get 3 out of 4 generally, and you have a good return. Our EV3 is a fantastic car. The product is good. The range is good. The styling is nice. Customers seem to like it. Our network is very strong. The people that work here are good. So we've everything. All the stars are aligned to push the car. The bit of pushback against electric vehicles that was there last year seems to be abating. People are becoming more knowledgeable on what's available and what the cars can do. And once people understand what you expect from an electric car and what it can give you, our EVs do all that and more, I think. So for the customer that wants to go electric and wants to buy the car, we have a fantastic offering. So our sales volume so far have been very strong. EV3 has had a fantastic start. EV6 probably started it, then the EV9 was continued it on, and the EV3 is a car for the masses, I'd say more. It's at a price where more people are comfortable investing their hard-earned money to buy an electric car.
So listening from the outside, you might think plain sailing a Kia, easy brand to work with, great sales figures. Was your career always this easy then? Start from the start.
I wouldn't for a second say it's plain sailing with Kia and it's easy going, but it all comes through from hard work, and we're in a good position at the moment. I'm an accountant by trade, qualified as an accountant, did tax exams, so I had them as well, although I probably can't remember a tax code anymore. I haven't worked in it for so long. I've worked with about 4 brands. I've worked both retail and distributor level, so I kind of have a little bit of everything. I worked with Rover back in the day in 2000, 1999, 2000 I started. So a bit of work with Rover, Land Rover, did a bit with Volvo, and it just keeps going. It's at a retailer, so it was Volvo and Land Rover at retail. It was Rover at wholesale or manufacturer level, and with Kia since 2008. So I started here as financial controller. I had a very good group of people working here. This company in its current existence was started in 2005. So I came in just after the initial tranche. And I've been here ever since. I think when we started, we sold 3,000 cars, maybe we were lucky. 2009 was probably a black spot for everybody that I never forget. And since then, it's been onwards and upwards. We've done really, really well. But it is through the hard work, not from me. I hasten to add, great team of people who work here. They're all very passionate. They're all motor people. Our philosophy here as a group is that the hardest thing has got to be is to sell the car, to get the dealer, to get the customer to sign the dotted line to commit to buying the car. And after that, you have to try and make everything as easy as possible. So it's delivery, it's the warranties, it's the finance packages. It's everything after that has got to be a little bit easier. And so we try and make the sale to be the hardest thing and everything else to be easier. Some places I've worked with, the red tape gets in the way sometimes, and that gets a little bit harder.
The Kia story has evolved greatly over the number of years, especially since you've been here. Talk us through the difference for people who don't know between early days of Kia in Ireland and where we are now and the differences.
Well, when I started in 2007, Kia, the Kia brand in Ireland was a Sportage and a Sorento. They were the 2 cars that we sold. Both diesel, both heavy industrial workhorse of vehicles. Brilliant vehicles. Always, since I've started, I think just after I started, Kia launched their 7-year warranty. So we don't discuss it now too often, but people would always say to me, well, you have a 7-year warranty because you don't trust in the product. It was actually the opposite way around. We had a 7-year warranty because we trusted in the product. They didn't give trouble. So you could afford to give a 7-year warranty, and the odd car that gave you the issue, we could always fix and handle it and keep our customers happy. And we've evolved from being a predominantly 100% diesel to then we start bringing in some Picantos and some Rios and some Stonics and some different types of cars. So we kind of offer something for everybody. We don't promote all it. We've too many. Kia is a worldwide organization and it sells cars everywhere. And we try and just keep our customer base happy. And I'm a firm believer in slowly but steady increments and keeping your offers continually the same year on year, so when your customers return for their second and third purchase of a Kia, they kind of know what they're going to get. They don't get, the customer that buys a Kia today won't get a vastly different offer from the offer they got 4 years ago. The terms might change and the interest rates might change, but in general terms, we like the customers to know what they can expect when they go into a garage, and it's worked very well.
Do you think there was a particular tipping point where you saw a change in Kia?
I would have said that there's been two tipping points. I think we brought out the second generation Sportage in about 2011, and that brought the Sportage from being a working vehicle, a working SUV type vehicle, to a very desirable, comfortable, compact SUV, and our sales in that vehicle just went through the roof, and that was a major change. And after that, then the product just every time they bring out a new product, it just seems to improve. And the Korean production facilities, they tell you they're going to do something and they deliver. There's never a mistake. So certainly when the Sportage, the second generation Sportage, around about 2011, 2012, I'll say, that brought our numbers and our customers to a different level. And then certainly the EV6. The EV6 has taken the customer base and the Kia perception nearly to a different level completely. The trade-ins, the customers we get for that EV6 and the EV9 and a little bit the EV3, they're a different class of trade-ins, a different class of car. Our network has to deal with trading in heavier metal, more expensive vehicles than we ever have in the past.
Just in relation to the EV6, and obviously you're coming from a financial background, something I've noticed is how well that car is holding its value. And you know, for there was a lot of discussion over the last couple of years about, you know, EV values, but in particular EV6 has remained very strong. What do you think that is?
Well, I am biased, so you have to accept that first and foremost. But I do believe, and I'm open to be contradicted because I'm contradicted all the time. But the EV6, to my mind, is the first electric car that actually can just be referred to as a car. It doesn't have that electric look, that aerodynamic that's required. It just looks, the styling on the car is something second, and it stands up, and the car, you wouldn't believe, I think the cars are out now since 2021, I think. It's out 3 years, and the demand for it is on the increase. With all the problems and with all the EV uncertainty at the kind of this time last year, when there was so much bad press and so much negativity around the cars, we knew we had a very strong product. And I believe we did a test drive campaign just to break. There's a big thing about myth busting on electric cars, but just to get the honest answers out there. We wanted people to drive that car because it's such a good car. And we honestly believe that people took the car for 2 days and drove it for 2 days, they'd actually understand what electric driving is all about and how good the cars can be. And I can say the only stipulation I put on the campaign was that we didn't measure sales volumes from it. I didn't want it to be a sales tool. I wanted it to be an information tool that everybody learnt about the car. And it did so much more than we expected. But you can do that from a place of confidence when you know the car is so good. That EV6, it's a cracking car.
Just on the 48-hour test drive that you're talking there, so talk us through, there was I don't want to say a challenge is the right word, but essentially you could go to a dealer, take a car for 48 hours, but did you guys have to step in when it came to insurance? We
had to do all of that. We were doing everything that has never been done before. So if we did 1,000 test drives, I can't remember what we did. I think we did 2,000 test drives, or we did 2,000 inquiries, and we did well over 1,000 test drives. But we had to actually nearly take out 1,000 separate insurance policies for those people. But it was a piece of work that was worth doing, and I think we're reaping the benefits now with our EV sales, because we specifically wanted people to get the cars, drive with hours. We actually didn't want them to get the cars fully charged. We wanted them to get the cars kind of halfway charged, so that they had to go and either charge it at home, or if they didn't have a home charger, to use the public network charging, because we gave them a card. And just to live to learn with an electric car. The only stipulations we put in was that it was a 40-hour test drive campaign. The 48 hours are for either pick it up on Monday and drop it back on Wednesday, or collect them on Wednesday and drop it back on a Friday. We didn't want it over the weekends for people out just going to weddings and abusing the offer that was there. But it was everybody, I think without question, nobody took the car and said they wouldn't buy one. Some people took because they didn't like it. For some people's driving styles and some people's needs, an electric car didn't suit them at the moment, and that confirmed that for them, which is fine. But nobody took that electric car and said, no, I don't like it. Everybody, without doubt, thought it was a cracking car.
Two things spring to mind with Kia and the recent Storm, the last one. I can't remember already what it was called.
Storm Eon, wasn't it?
Oh, Aeon.
Yeah,
that was
Aeon,
it.
sorry.
So two things happened. One, I think an electrical engineer plugged his EV9 into his house, which, don't try this at home, kids. He knew what he was doing. He was essentially doing car to house, not quite car to grid. The other thing that happened was someone rang in to Joe Duffy and explained how she was keeping her router and a few other bits going, plugged into her, I think, an EV6.
EV6, yeah. I listened to that interview live.
And I mean, how does that work? Does someone say, Ronan, put on Liveline? Or
No, I wish I thought of it. I didn't. That was actually. I was going to DoneDeal to meet a dealer in my electric EV9. I was somewhere over the mountains in my car, and Pat Kenny was on, and there was another brand had just launched a big recent EV study on how people were buying the cars. So I listened to that because I was interested. And in the middle of discussing a different brand, this customer came on singing the praise of EV6, which was nice for me, but that's just the way it goes. We had many people. I believe you need to get a breaker in your house just when you're charging your home from the car. And I think there's a bit of an issue there, and I'm not compass mentis to do that, but just be careful when doing it. But we had an awful lot of people use their EV cars, particularly EV6 and EV9, to run their houses in the west of the country for nearly a full week. I mean, I think our batteries on our EV6, if I'm not mistaken, about an 80 kilowatt battery. I think they said a normal house uses 11 kilowatts a day. So doing the maths, it will run the house for 3 or 4 days, most of your appliances. The battery won't work when it goes below 20%. It'll cut out to make sure the car can be driven. So you never fear running your car out. If it goes below 20%, drive it to your nearest fast charging station, bring it back full within an hour, and you're ready to go again. It kept people's goods in their freezers fully not defrosting, so they didn't lose money there. It kept the heating on. More importantly, it kept the lights on. It kept the water running. Jesus, it's certainly something you wouldn't think about.
Kia, both domestically and internationally, seem to have managed the move and transition to EVs really well. And what do you, certainly domestically, you can speak from here. What do you think is that the reason for that?
I can only talk about Kia, and I can only talk about what we tried to do. As I mentioned a couple of times already, product is the start of it. When you have good product, a lot of your job it's not done, but you have a good base to start from. So we have good product. We put an awful lot of training into our dealer network. Our dealer network has got to buy into the electric evolution and how things are going. I mentioned that a couple of our dealer conferences, with the way Kia are bringing out cars, particularly, now things can change, but at the moment, unless you buy into the electric vehicle range, you're kind of with the wrong brand, because that's where a lot of the vehicles are coming from. Now that could change in the future, we don't know, but at the moment, their investment is, and what we see coming down the tracks, are quite a few new electric models in a few years. So we do have products to offer all our customers. Where we've been so successful in the medium term is we offer good diesels, good petrols, cracking hybrids, cracking plug-in hybrids, and good electric. So we offer all things needed to all people, and that does open your customer base an awful lot. But it comes down to the product and the network that you have, because you can have good product and a bad network, which gives bad customer experience. You won't sell too many secondary cars after that.
It's funny, and we get the same sort of feedback from talking to other manufacturers. The early people who were buying EVs came in, they knew exactly what they were talking about. They were well researched. They were EV evangelists themselves. We're at the stage now that a lot of customers coming in are for the first time considering EV and may not have even thought about it. Are there still challenges in education there?
Of course there are. And it takes an awful lot longer to sell an electric car to a customer than it does to sell a traditional ICE car, because it's new technology. And you have to manage people's expectations and explain to them how things change. I wouldn't say there's any disadvantages to an electric car, but there are differences that you have to be aware of. And it's why you need people in the garages now to be expert on the product, and that's why we run so many training courses here. You are right, the people that come in first knew more about the electric cars than our salesmen selling. That's not the case anymore. But a customer comes in looking for answers. They have to be able to trust that the person talking to them knows what they're talking about and isn't just trying to sell them a car for the sake of selling them a car. The worst thing I want to do is sell somebody any car that's not suitable to their needs. It just doesn't work. In the long term, they'll be upset. They'll feel that they didn't get a proper deal, and they won't do the brand any good.
Korea is a long way from Ballymount, where we're sitting today in Kia HQ. That's not to say Kia aren't involved even at an Irish level. It's a little bit of a unique structure in how this business works.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Well, I have a Korean president. All distributors, actually, there's one exception in Europe. There's a UK president, but most national sales companies will have. They all have a Korean presence in the office. That goes without saying. But it's a Korean company. The Korean culture is through the company. But what's more important is I need to be able to communicate to the factory very quickly if I have a problem, or if I want something changed, or they need to communicate with me. So I don't speak Korean. I don't know how good your Korean is, but mine isn't brilliant.
Worse than yours.
So I've learned a few words now. You'd be surprised what you pick up. So I have a Korean president here who's basically factory facing. And I'm in charge of all the country operations here. I'd be involved in everything to do with Ireland, and my team would be here. But if we have an issue going back towards the factory, I have two extremely competent and helpful Koreans in the office, one in the product end of it and one as a president. So any issues come up, I talk to them. They can talk back to the factory in their own language and try and get problems resolved as quickly as possible. And it also shows the investment that the Koreans have in their country. So they invest having somebody sitting here all day that potentially won't sell an extra car, but is there just to solve problems if they arise.
Is there any part of Korean culture that you wish Irish people had a little bit more in their lives of?
They are very disciplined. Well,
we both like a fizzy drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's there. I can't get down that road because I could get caught in a problem with stereotypes. But no, they certainly are very sociable people, and they enjoy a good night out, and they have a good balance. They do tend to what's the phrase? Work hard and play hard, and they certainly do that. I'm Irish. I will never say anything's better than we do. I think we do most things okay. We're not doing too badly. Does
that buffer, I suppose, for want of a better word, does that help? Like if you want to react to something on the 1st of May, because one of your competitors has dropped prices, the way this business operates, is it much easier for you to, if you had to do something like that?
It would be worse if my president wasn't there. Always, you would always like to react to issues quicker than you can, and we try to do our best. But it certainly does no harm that I have a direct line to the factory. If it's not only with pricing, but if there's an issue with a product, or if I need a different colour, or if I see that there's one colour not selling enough, I can cancel that order, make a different colour, bring them in for me, and we get that done much quicker. It's more product delivery we change. Right? Like pricing, you're kind of left to your own here to balance the market, and there's a team here that hope that know what they're doing. They can make those decisions themselves anyway.
Turning to the market, we've seen a reasonable period of stabilisation over the last couple of years. The numbers for registrations have been stable up. How do you see the next few years as we approach 2030 panning out?
Well, again, I'll talk about Kia because that's all. Like this year, I think the market's going to be flat. I don't think it's going to be up much one way or the other. We have a range of products coming, and that's very exciting. As I said, we have kind of 5 or 6 new models before the end of this year. Cottle, my head of marketing, is going to have a difficult job promoting all those products and getting them out there, but that's his job. And then we're moving into the commercial vehicle sphere, which we haven't been in before. So I think we will probably naturally grow our business with the new models gradually as we go. And then the commercials are going to bring a new spring to our boat that we've never used before. And we're all a little bit worried because we don't have the expertise in that. But like everything we try to do here, it's slowly but surely, do it gradually. Let's not try and break records, and let's try and do it the right way.
How are you going to operate the commercial vehicle side of the business? Will every dealer sell them, or is it a certain few? No,
you need expertise. We believe you need expertise. And we're probably going to pick about a third of our network. We'll focus on the main urban areas, and it's about having enough stock to sell first of all, and then having a service area for our customers to come to as well. So I think we'll have about a third, which is probably 9 or 10 dealers, focus on the urban areas, and then we'll build it gradually from there and see how we go.
Some of that arsenal, because I've been lucky enough to see it already this year, the PV5, the new EV4, which in hatch is really good looking car. The sedan version, we don't have that many sedans in Ireland anymore. It's a bit of a more polarizing design. But one that really got me was I don't know if people call it the WAVE, the WAV. It's wheelchair accessible vehicle, which is the PV5. And I loved the back end of it was essentially, if I interpreted correctly, was Kia had probably done focus groups for people that might have had a child, that might have had a family member, and essentially said to them, okay, right, you can roll a wheelchair in through this ramp with a really decent capacity load on it. But stuff like, there's a seat beside where that person will sit. So it's like if someone said, okay, well, like if you do need a parent to hold your hand in a wheelchair or whatever, I just thought that was incredible.
What I like about the likes of those designs and what Kia think about is it's not all about sales volumes, because how many people are actually going to... That's a vehicle you need, unfortunately, for a wheelchair or something like that. And it's great that they think about the need of the customer and the need of the wheelchair user. You're going to build those cars. We're never going to sell an awful lot of them. But they've spent the investment to make it more comfortable for that wheelchair user and their parent, etc. to be there. And it's lovely to see. And it is something, instead of just rolling in the back and leaving them sitting on their own, we're trying to make it more comfortable for those people. And you know, please God, when it comes out, I saw it too. I was very impressed with the vans when we saw them. So we are all excited about what the future holds for those products.
And I know it's a tricky one to answer, but of the present Kia lineup, do you have a favourite? And outside of the Kia brand, is there any car from history or classic that would
that's like asking me to pick one of my children, and I only have two, so I love you both equally. I did fall in love with the EV6 from the time that I saw it. And I thought it was something special, and I still do believe that. I like the Sportage. I think the Sportage is so reliable, and it's a stylish car that gives people what they want. So they would probably be my two favourites. Other cars are niche. The EV9 is a niche product, and that's good. Like, you can go down them all. EV3 is so much going for it. There's so much back in it. But if I had my own money and I was picking a car, it would be hard to pick between an EV6 or a Sportage. Be one of those two probably. Sorry, the rest of my family.
With your previous role here, would you have had to be across the decision to put a Kia Stinger petrol on as a press car, or were you just told?
Oh, no, that was me. So that was, look, if the Stinger
V6 petrol engine car.
Now, if you're going to ask me what cars I miss the most, I do miss my E6, my Stinger, because I loved it. It was a cracking car, but it was always going to be a niche product, and unfortunately the tax changes just made that car unsellable really in Ireland due to road tax, not even just VRT. Great fun car though, but there is a place for fun stuff as well, and that's never going to be a big seller, but by God, it was good fun to drive.
It was very, very tail happy, but equally the EV6 GT. I remember you were one of the first ones, and I don't know if this is state secrets or anything, but even some of our defence forces, shall we call them, were road testing that car because it was so quick. Yeah,
they told us they were impressed with it as well, and I think they said just not quite yet, but it's possibly one for the future. But there's an EV9 GT due to come out in Europe next year. We probably won't bring it into Ireland because, again, the brand is so successful at the moment. You get a limited supply of stock, so we have to decide how many we're going to take of each model. We probably won't go for the GT because I think that there's more to offer for the GT line or just a normal Earth that people will take. But they make some cracking cars, and they are good fun to drive.
And does that mean if you wanted a special order one, you could? Or?
I can. If somebody actually specifically wants one, we can go down that road and get one. But I'm not going to bring in a stock of them that will only fit a niche customer and then take out a stock that I could apply somebody else a more appropriate car sometimes.
You're a big Dubs fan.
6 in a row. Don't ever forget it.
And again, there was Balya Ó Clia on number plates.
Yeah.
Was that all Kia cars or just marketing cars?
No, okay. We did the promotion with our Dublin dealers. So when the Dublin dealers sold the car, I think they put Balya Ó Clia onto the reg plates. It was good. It was a quirky little thing.
Wouldn't work in Mayo, but it was.
No, and you know, we have been approached several times to sponsor different things and that sort of stuff. And I do think you know, if you're ever going to sponsor a team or something, you need to go for the league rather than a team, because I might sponsor Dublin to loads of cars in Dublin. I won't sell many in Kerry or Cork. You know, you have to just bear in mind those side of things.
Because I was going to say, would it be a proud day if you had the Kia logo on the Dublin
football
team jersey?
I'd love it, and it's a loads of cars in Dublin, but I'd upset probably 31 other counties, so I can't be doing that.
Okay. I often did wonder, would people, like, as you say, you wouldn't maybe think, but what about someone in, you know, Kerry, Wexford, whatever, suddenly you're associated with one particular team? You don't really...
If people in the shop, people come into a showroom and they say, I don't want the red car because I'm a Leeds fan, or I want the red car because I'm a Liverpool or United fan. You have all those little idiosyncrasies that you have to think about sometimes.
Okay. Well, Ronan, I don't know if I'll see you on a trip again before the end of the year. Maybe before, actually.
We've a lot coming before the end of the year.
Right. Okay. You're never someone who's looking for your wallet anyway, so thanks for looking after us whenever we're away.
You're more than welcome, no panic at all.
And thank you very much for chatting to us on Drivers Republic.
Enjoyed it. Anytime you need to come in again, you're more than welcome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with DoneDeal Motors, with Ireland's widest selection of cars for sale from certified trusted dealers. The right car for you is on DoneDeal.ie.
Also, good news on DoneDeal. We were talking about the euro pound price thing that people do to go up to the top because they won't pay for the more expensive ads. DoneDeal are working on a solution to that.
Thank you, Leah.
Yes, it'll just make those Muppets have a more difficult life.
Well, I mean,
it's not
just painful to go on and search, and then suddenly there's 8 cars for a pound or euro
or 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, just pay for the extra ad. It's not that more expensive.
No, come on,
and you know, it works.
But thanks to DoneDeal for taking some action. They're listening.
Yes, that's good to know. Good to know. Right, a little bit later on, we're going to be discussing the latest batch of Simi sales figures for Ireland for 2025 in general. I think it's good news.
Yep.
But first of all, we have an email. We get emails, driverspublicpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, we have an email from Colin Murray, and I will read it out to you now. Hi guys, absolutely love the podcast. Really interesting, but I'll admit I am a bit of a car junkie. Hope you don't mind the email, but I'm kind of stuck. Basically, both my parents have passed away. My dad passed away 5 years ago, and at that time I got a Skoda Octavia 1.6 diesel. Great car. I live in Clondalkin but work over in the airport as a police officer, so I'm over and back on the M50 a couple of times a week. Unfortunately, my mum passed away last year and the house is in the final stages of probate. Once sold, I want to upgrade my car, say to a 2021, 2022 model, but which way do I go? Is there any future in diesel? Will government try and hike all costs associated with diesel to try and decrease the market as such? Do I go hybrid, Toyota, etc., or do I go full EV? Everyone warns me about EV, and especially the cost of replacing a battery should I need to. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, first of all, Colin, whatever you buy, it has to be quick, because the amount of time it took the airport police to get to that looper, it was smashing up the gate a few weeks ago. Come on. Jesus.
Yeah, I did see that.
Well, sorry for your loss, first of all. That is a commute, but not really, not a big commute, if we're going to say Clondalkin to the airport every day. So, I mean, yes, you could buy a diesel, but do you need a diesel? I would probably say no.
No, and look, he probably had that car a number of years, and look, at the time it was fine, and look, there's nothing wrong with a Skoda Octavia 1.6 diesel. It is one of those cars that does everything. But look, I mean, there's lots of questions, and this applies to anyone who's listening. There's lots of questions when you're considering choosing a car, and especially when you're choosing a powertrain. Diesel always suits people who are doing a little bit of mileage, because these have diesel particulate filters on them. Those don't like short journeys necessarily. You need to blow the dust out of those now and again with a longer drive. So if your commute is quite short, it's not especially wise to drive a diesel every day. So a petrol or a hybrid or an EV will work better for that. In terms of Colin, if his daily commute is Clondalkin to the airport and back, and if he doesn't do a huge amount of mileage, I would say, okay, maybe it's time to move on from diesel. Whether to go into hybrid, like standard hybrid, like a Toyota will do a lovely job. The sales of those are flying. Is there an equivalent to an Octavia, or if you wanted something like that? Probably not. initially, if you're if you're going EV, my head would be probably Skoda Elrock. If he was coming out of an Octavia.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe he doesn't want to go quite new with the.
Oh, so yeah, he does.
20,
Sorry,
21,
apologies. He does say
22
2021, 2022 model. So yeah, that does give us a
I'll tell you where my head went straight away, but I'm quickly retracting. I just thought, went on to DoneDeal, had a look. Audi A6 2021 to 2022 models only. They are. There was 150 cars came up. Guess what fuel source? Every single one of. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I found one. Okay, this could be interesting. Every other fuel source is diesel.
Yeah.
Now, look, this might be a bit too dear, but there is a 300 brake horsepower Quattro S-Line petrol plug-in hybrid with only 100,000 kilometers on it in an Audi dealership, which means you're going to get a 1-year warranty minimum for 37.
Wow.
But maybe that's too much money.
Might be too
the
much
same money would buy you a new version of what you're driving now, Colin. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, you could be in an Octavia. Now, look, if you're into an Octavia, you could be, the entry level petrol is a lovely thing. Totally fine, especially for that sort of drive.
It's now 1.5. I think they've discontinued the 1 liter engine.
But
Diesel
1.5 TSI is a great engine, super car.
Yeah. Used to be a bit jumpy, but they addressed that.
Yeah, probably after listening to a Nobby video, was it?
I don't know. My parents had a T-Roc with that 1.5 engine, and it was like it had kangaroo petrol in it. It was the clutch was just odd, and it was a known kind of VW issue across the group, and they obviously did some tweaks to it and sorted it out. So yeah, if you fancied a bit of flash, if there was a few quid left from probate there, obviously a car is a depreciating asset. I'm not saying go and spend all your inheritance on one, but yeah, it's a nice kind of 3-4 year old fresh enough A6 in S-Line is a beautiful looking car.
Yeah, it is. Look, bear in mind servicing costs could be a bit juicy at some stage, and always budget some money per month if you can for servicing costs, so you don't get a fright when you do need to replace something major. He does ask a couple of questions here, which I think we should look at. Is will government try and hike all costs associated with diesel and decrease the market as such? Is diesel on the way out? We'll talk about the sales later on, but diesel sales are down 25% this year so far for the first quarter. And look, the taxation has always been aimed at, in more recent years, getting rid of diesel and making diesel less attractive. So I think that's the direction of travel is there. And so we would probably see in the future, some further increases on CO2, figures or say emissions. I would imagine that there will be less incentive to buy one and possibly more taxation on the fuel at some stage. But it depends what we say about the future. Next 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't see anything massively dramatic.
I think as well, if you're in that position in government, you risk really upsetting a lot of business owners and people who are driving for a living, doing something drastic with diesel. So I don't know, like hauliers, you don't upset hauliers, but can you give an exemption that, they wouldn't be penalised, but your private motorist would be? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a very hard one to say, really. I suppose the reason that would make me still buy a diesel was if I'm doing enough mileage and I'm going to flip that car in the next 3 years anyway. I wouldn't care because the fuel savings for you will be probably worth it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I don't think from the mileage that he's doing, unless there's some other stuff that he needs to go into a diesel again.
No.
I would imagine if he's been happy in a Skoda Octavia, I would be, obviously your Audi suggestion is very nice, but if you want something a bit more sensible, I would probably go Octavia again. If he does want to go EV, which is of course an option, plenty of options of at 21, 22. You could be in a Volkswagen ID3 for 20 grand. You'd be in an ID4 for 27, 28 perhaps, for a pretty nice one. So if you wanted to go into that EV route for a few years old, you'll get plenty for that money, for decent money in a 21, 22.
Yeah, and I think, what year's the car he's driving now?
Well, he didn't say, because 5 years ago he got an Octavia, so it's at least 2020 anyway.
So yeah, I mean, if you were not buying new then, you may not want to buy new now. Yeah, look, I think you're in the position where Clondalkin to the airport, if that's your daily commute or a 5 days a week commute, that will cover whatever fuel you have. Doesn't really matter. You can go electric. You could just go more of the same. There's
Or as you say,
plenty
go
of
bananas and buy an Audi A6.
Yeah, is that bananas?
No, it's not.
That,
but I
that
guess it's
wild.
it's the less sensible approach. But yeah, I do like your thinking.
Yeah. I do know someone who has a 1.6 Octavia diesel and also doesn't do really big miles, and they're quite often getting that diesel light coming on. That the car needs to be brought up the M1 and kind of ragged.
They need mileage.
So yeah, I probably would steer away from diesel just because there's no real great benefit to you getting it. If you were living in Cahersiveen to Clondalkin every day, I'd say go diesel all day long. But you're not. So I think either go used petrol or have a look at some of the newer, more affordable electric stuff. And again, we don't really know about space. Do you need a big boot? Look, I think if you have an Octavia, you're used to having a big boot. If you don't have a big boot, you'll probably miss it.
Yeah, and look, in general terms, is diesel going to disappear in the next 4 or 5 years? No. Not necessarily. There might be some taxation measures, but as Mark said, I don't see them being radical because there's too many stakeholders who would be out with placards outside Leinster House. So I don't see that. I don't see that in the immediate term. And look, the sales figures suggest that, and that's the direction of travel. Lots more hybrids, lots more EVs, and fewer diesels. So watch this space.
Or have a look at a Ford Focus.
Yeah,
get one of the last Focuses.
Yeah, or a Golf.
Or a Golf. Yeah.
A dying breed of wonderful car.
I know these are all kind of boring answers, Colin, but they're kind of, you're going for a sensible car. You probably want another sensible car.
Yeah, exactly.
So this week, Simi again released figures because it was the start of a new month, and those figures were released on April Fool's Day, but there was no tricks up there. What are the? I mean, you're such a numbers nerd. You love this stuff, you weirdo.
Yeah, I do like the stats. Well, firstly, we had an email from a WhatsApp message, from our previous guest, Alan Bateson, wanted to point out that the ID4 is the number one in the fleet market, irregardless of ICE or BEV models in Q1. And Volkswagen is the biggest winner overall in terms of market share in Q1. And he said this has to be newsworthy. So,
of course.
There you go, Alan.
And it's not new news because the ID4 has... it hasn't been toppled from the top, really.
No, but I think his point is that it's the biggest now fleet winner, regardless, and that previously would have been a diesel of some sort. So,
what I thought was interesting was I think there's been obviously a lot of talk about the Hyundai Inster, and rightly so. And this could maybe more of a they can't get enough of them problem. But I think there was one more Ford Explorer registered than Insters. No, or was the other way around?
I need to drill down into that.
I went deep diving down into the figures. So we're talking about 170 Insters or something like that. And I do know from people messaging me who are waiting on them, there is definitely a delay.
Ford Explorer, there has been 225 of them. No.
I mean, look, they're pathetic numbers if you were in the UK or Germany, but
I really like the Ford Explorer, though. I didn't think I would, but I think it's a lovely, really package. It's a huge car, mind you, but it is an impressive thing.
And it's a positive story where Ford are any Capris in there. Any Capris?
I'll be scrolling right down the list now.
I mean, there'd have to be some registered because we know some exist. But
I'll tell you now in 2 seconds now what the Ford Capri filter results, and then we have
some of the other non-surprising stuff. While Paddy's looking, the Tucson is still the best-selling model overall. Then the Toyota Yaris Cross, the Toyota RAV4. Toyota have 4 models in the top 10. They usually have 5. What's going on, Toyota?
54 Capris since the start of the year. And look, this was, whatever about the fact that we have seen March figures out, it does mark the end of the first quarter, and that for manufacturers is a big deal because pretty much not much will happen in April and May and June. So the first 3 months are really crucial. So it was interesting to see that sales are up 3.7% in the first 3 months of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. There were just under 65,000 cars registered in Ireland. That's underline registered. But March was a busy month, up 18.4% in the previous March. So February was quite poor, and then March was quite good as compared to last year. And as you said, Mark, totally the pack as usual, nothing new there, just over 15% market share, followed by Volkswagen in second and Hyundai in third. As we'd said, Skoda are down 13% on last year, and a lot of that is accounted for by quite a big drop in sales of the Octavia. Now, perhaps fleet deals, but we must try and find out the reason for that. Possibly a supply issue, but we've spoken about this before in the podcast. The Hyundai Tucson, again, remains the top-selling model. No sign of it budging, followed by the Toyota Yaris Cross and Toyota RAV4. Significant numbers
I think they're all examples of cars where if you owned one of them, you would go back to the same dealer, probably the same person. Maybe if you're feeling brave, ask for a different color this time. And you just keep going. And my own personal experience in my house was, I think there was 4 Qashqais in a row, and then eventually broke them all and went for an Aria. Wow!
How have you found that car? Actually, I never asked you about that.
I think we went for.
Do you drive it much?
Not really. No. If I do have a spare day to try and drive something, there's something else on the driveway that I'd rather take out. I have driven it a bit. I've been a passenger in a bit. You know, it's absolutely. Fine. I think it looks all right. It's quite a big car. From memory, ours, it's not quite a year old, but it was 42, I think, after the grants. And there are definitely other cars with faster charging speeds. Again, it's not relevant because it sits on the drive and gets charged there. And certainly the software in it looks very, very dated. The graphics look very dated. But the interior is nice. You get the kind of half leather on it. We went for that emerald green color. It's kind of looks black 1 minute. If the sun is shining, it looks like a really deep green. The wheels are hubcaps. Okay. But they look like alloys. So if you do whack one off a curb, it'll cost you nothing to replace.
That's a good idea, because it does happen.
But they don't look like hubcaps. It's funny how it works. Like they are plastic, but yeah, overall it's been fine. Not the most efficient car in the world. It's a smaller battery, but again for our needs,
perfect.
It's perfect.
A good sign of the economy is Porsche figures, which I have been looking at. So
the Macan,
the Cayenne is the number one. 89 units of Cayenne. There's 67 Macan, as you say, 40 Panamera, which is 166% more than this time last year. Taycan figures are down significantly, minus 60%. Which is possibly an indication.
Huge jump in the new model price.
Yeah, and obviously people start still a bit spooked about the residuals in those 13 911s. So hot tip to those 13 people. Carrera GT4 and
nice.
0 Caymans. But the Cayman doesn't exist anymore. It's a 718 Cayman. But interesting figures to see that. And a sign that there's still potentially a little bit of money around.
It's also, I think, a sign of plug-in hybrid and electrification.
100%.
And maybe it's, I know Porsche have had significant struggles this year in terms of lots of things, and one, forecasting and profitability. But will electrification give leases of life to these brands? Because I know, for example, from talking to people from MDL the other day, there are some G-Wagons sitting out on the Naas Road now that are electric.
Yeah, and they're £250,000, I think, aren't they?
They're still very, very expensive.
Yeah,
but
223 and again, or something, which is,
people that would have had that money anyway don't really care.
Yeah, exactly. But
but you'll see more of those because of that.
I wonder, and it's a complete sidebar, are we at the stage where the environmental, people who are very environmentally conscious and protest with placards and stuff, are they going to be getting upset about, the likes of G wagons that are electric, because it goes against two sides of their minds. One side of them says, okay, I don't like this thing, which is probably 3 tons, must be more, but it's fully electric
and physically big, and isn't needed for probably 90% of the journeys it's doing, if not more. I mean, the only person, I don't even know this person, but the only person I know of in Ireland who has or had one of these was a big time hotel property developer, with the means to do it. And you'd often see this car on Camden Street and stuff like that, and people take pictures of it, and it all looks great. Look, I think if you have you should be able to buy whatever you want, whether it's a big car or a small car. But there's no denying when it comes to the tailpipe part of something like a G-Wagon, it's far better than it was.
100%. And enormous power in that electric version, and the potential to spin on its own axis, I believe, if you put the shoe down.
Yes.
At the other end of the size scale, I was looking at Citroen, and they're diminutive AMI. So 18 of them have been registered so far this year. If you were to break that down into whether they're actually in customers' hands or on dealer forecourts, I'm not sure, but it is. Yeah, it's a decent enough figure. I haven't spent any time in the enemy. I drove it a couple of years ago when they had one over in Ireland. I wonder, for somewhere like me where I live, I could drive one comfortably, to the shops and back behind the old guy in the Focus ST. But can
it give you a tow back?
Yeah, I just don't know where or when there is a really usable case for it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Amazon with that huge factory plant out in Rathcoole, I'd buy them for that. If I was in the DAA, I'd buy them for the ramp.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah,
I drove one in Trim on the main road, and there was an oil tanker behind me, and that was intimidating. But are there 18 Citroen dealers in Ireland? So that is kind of
some of them do for sure have made it into customers' hands or coffee shops or whatever else. I was talking to Cathal from Citroen the other day, and he was saying that there's a newer version coming. So that should be coming reasonably soon, and has some styling changes and other features as well. So it doesn't
go any faster or further.
No. You would need to push that downhill for that. But I am looking to maybe do something on driving around East Cork in an AMI coming to you soon.
Please do not take an AMI on the road from Dublin to East Cork.
No, well, I'd need to leave now for July. I think we'd have to.
I was in Turin a few weeks ago, and I saw a lot of them on the street.
In Turin, and were they in the Fiat form or the Topolino, or were they in a?
No, they were like just on the street.
Oh,
the same with that modern take on the bubble car. Who makes that again? The kind of, it's got like the LED lights in the front of it now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, I mean, those things probably work better, and people in those cities are probably more tolerant of small little cars. We're just not used to it here. I think, having been tried to be bullied off the road in a Dacia Spring by some landscape gardener who has a death wish, I can't imagine driving something like that.
No,
around here.
No. So yeah, interesting figures. I think the main headline is, okay, diesel is down 25%. Or EV is up 25%. So, crude beer maths is that the diesel drop is being replaced by EV. There's not much fluctuation from the other segments apart from PHEV, which has really jumped a huge amount. PHEVs are up 60% on last year, which is quite significant. Hybrid, of course, is up because Toyota numbers are always strong. So that's up 20%. And petrol, while it's number one, has dropped 11% in the first quarter of 2024. But it's that interesting sort of diesel's down 25%, electric is up 25%. That's the interesting headline from that.
I do wonder though, is it direct? Like if you're someone who was able to get 1,100 kilometers out of your diesel Audi A4, is the natural place for you to go electric?
No, I don't think it's that simple. I would imagine that Toyota has over the last number of years soaked up a lot of the diesels to hybrid conversations. But I would imagine that there has to be a huge portion of that. It's just like basic maths, there must be a huge proportion of it, because there's been such a drop on diesel and such such a jump in petrol.
Yeah, and look, I know there's obviously the VAT back and stuff for businesses, but if you are someone who has a company car and someone else is putting that charge card in your sun visor for you, you're going to have to stop to check emails on a laptop anyway. So weirdly, actually, maybe, people who do the length of breadth of the country are actually more suitable for electric once there's fast charging available than a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. And, by, as we've said earlier on, we're looking at ID4 as being number one in the fleet market, that would indicate that those were once diesels for sure.
Yeah. So look, it's good that it's up. It's a continual positive story about sales overall this year. I think are reasonably strong. Look, we're still a very small country. Our car park is 120,000 ish new cars a year.
We'll get a deeper insight next season when we talk to Emma Mitchell from SIMI, who's going to join us in the show as well. Just to this is episode 7, and next week is our last of this season. And then we'll take a few weeks break to rejuvenate you guys, rejuvenate ourselves, and then come back with some pretty interesting guests in season 2. So we'll look forward to speaking to Emma, who'll give us some really, really good insights into the industry from her perspective.
And I know she, for some people, is a very controversial personality, but having met Nadia Adan last week at a SIMI aftermarket conference, she has told me she would love to have us over to her new premises on the next season.
Great, yeah, looking forward to that. And we also have Volkswagen's chief designer, Andreas.
Yes,
Mint is joining us.
Andreas Mint, who is the smiliest car designer, because I think they have a reputation as being, godlike and difficult and aloof.
He's a very down to earth guy, especially someone who came from Bentley as well. So he's in Ireland. We'll have to teach him about notions, but I don't think he has notions.
No, he's the guy who keeps talking about the secret sauce. Yeah. So he's promised us a full hour episode. So we'll need to do our homework for that one.
That's great. Well, look, as ever, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you get your podcasts. And next week, Mark, what do we got?
Next week, I will just have been back from the international drive of the new Ford Puma Electric, which has been a phenomenally successful car in the UK and Ireland over the last few years. Can it replicate that success with an electric version of it? Also, I'm trying to think, what else am I driving? Oh, the new Audi A6. So you've had it. I'm looking forward to driving that. I'm also in the Capri next week, so it's all working out well with Ford.
Great.
And I'll be able to give you a few more thoughts on the new Model Y. Should it be a car you just go straight and order? I was going to say go straight to jail and order. But yeah, will it get the thumbs up from little old me? We'll find out.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Drivers Republic podcast. If you want to email us, you can do on driversrepublicpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, chat to you then.
Bye-bye.